Hunter Biden's lawyer has withdrawn from his case, citing recent developments in the matter, including that expected witness testimony he is set to give related to a, quote, sweetheart plea deal, according to Fox News.
Hunter's lawyers have demanded the Department of Justice honor part of the plea that would allow him to avoid prosecution on a gun charge. They wrote in a filing from Sunday. The lawyers are arguing that the agreement on the gun charge is still in place, even though the deal on the misdemeanor tax offense is, quote, largely unraveled last month, AP writes. This comes as special counsel David Weiss, who will be leading the investigation into Hunter Biden, has said Hunter's case is likely heading to trial. In a court filing from yesterday, federal prosecutors hit back at accusations that they reneged last minute. A statement reads, quote, as of the end of the hearing on July 26th, the two proposed agreements were drafts that either party could propose changes to, and both parties did so following the hearing. So the Hunter Biden camp, as I understand it, is rejecting the idea that the judge needed to sign off and approve of the way that the gun charge was being handled. So apparently these kind of deals are often offered when there is a nonviolent case, and the agreement was that the judge, the lying on the judge registration, the gun registration form aspect of it would be dismissed if he declined from using drugs for a 2-year period and did this diversionary program. The whole deal got scuttled by the judge, but the Hunter Biden camp is saying it's not required for a judge to sign off on that part of the deal, so that they should honor it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But the bigger news that's highlighting this story is the fact that it seems like Biden's lawyer is going to have to be a witness in this case, testifying to whether or not the plea deal was in fact a sweetheart deal or somehow put together out of the ordinary course of business, whether it was biased because of his position, his relationship with the president
as the judge alleged that it was, which is very of great concern because again we really don't, I think even most conservatives think Hunter Biden, it's not really important to lock Hunter Biden away for the gun charge or the tax charge. What we want to know is whether there are more weighty and serious criminal financial matters that potentially involve his father. And I haven't seen anything to disabuse me from the notion that it was in fact a sweetheart deal, and a very unusual one that would have extended some level of immunity into the future, into things that have not been charged yet, that would have potentially shielded him from much more serious inquiry, that would have prevented there would be no reason to investigate something that would turn up potentially Joe Biden, that would impact Joe Biden. And that's what we really care about. So this is why David Weiss, who now has this special prosecutor status given to him by Merrick Garland, has really lost the confidence of Republicans who want to get to the bottom of this. Recall that the whole Hunter Biden, Joe Biden saga has, now we know that, yes, in fact, there was a dinner that President Biden was at, that one of the foreign business partners was there, that there was 20 calls that while Hunter Biden was with foreign business partners that Joe Biden participated in. Clearly, maybe unwittingly on his part, but clearly involved in promoting the exact kind of business that Hunter Biden was involved in, which was influence peddling, with making it look like he had access to his father and you could get some policy decisions. And of course, that Joe Biden did, in fact, as vice president, make a consequential Ukrainian policy decision that impacted Burisma, the company where Hunter Biden was being paid a lot of money monthly. So
that he bragged about.
That he bragged about doing that, and then they impeached Donald Trump over it. Yeah. Over pointing out some of those facts. So you can't get around this. And if David Weiss is not going to, is going to try to sweep this all under the rug and say, oh yeah, well, he's going down, in semi going down fashion for the gun and the other thing. That's actually worse than doing nothing. That's covering up more serious things.
Yeah, I have noticed some breakthrough in liberal media coverage, whereas before this issue was either ignored or they would address it.
They would say it's misinformation.
Yeah, they love to use a line that was something like, Republicans have been investigating this for years but have yet to find a smoking gun, which is true.
Yes.
But that was the kind of pro forma statement that they would say and then move on like nothing to see here. Now that there are increasingly bits of evidence coming through that shows that at very least there was an attempt to make influence peddling scheme, whether or not Joe Biden was knowledgeable of it. At a certain point, and this is how I feel about the Trump stuff as well, at a certain point, what is happening becomes so obvious, and the goals of those around you become so obvious that you cannot credibly claim ignorance. I don't think that after being told by all of your senior the lawyers that you appointed in the Justice Department that you lost the election, you can't keep saying that you think you won the election. I don't think at a certain point, after being put on more than 20 calls with your son's business associates and going to dinners and the like, that you can claim to not be aware of what your son was doing and that you had an obligation to put a stop to it.
And does the mainstream media, I think they're waking up to the fact that they were misled by Joe Biden and by the White House. The Washington Post article about the kind of Ukrainian connections and the laptop and from years ago now has like 8 fact checks on it. I mean, this was from the Washington Post fact checker, Glenn Kessler. Oh, you love that guy.
What a gem.
Right, and now it has like 8 updates and corrections where it says, it asserts at some point that Joe Biden was not at the dinner that the Ukrainian person was at. And now it's, well, actually he was there. Like it's that over and over again. So they just clearly had asked somebody representing Joe Biden who said, oh yeah, no, he wasn't there. Well, that person lied or was wrong.
Well, when I say there's a breakthrough,
it's that over and over again.
So I noticed I was listening. I do listen to a range of media sources to try to get a sense of what people are saying out there in the world outside of my own political bubble. And the Pod Save America guys brought this up on a recent episode. They've previously not really engaged with this issue. But they were kind of sussing out how they thought Biden should best approach this. Their posture was still that there's nothing here, it's a nothing burger, but they were acknowledging that there needs to be some comms work done to help insulate basically Biden against being attached to what his son's been accused of.
Well, the comms people just have to stop saying things that are just obviously not true. He wasn't at that dinner. He has no knowledge of his son's business dealings.
It's not true. That specific, but it's
obviously not true.
I want to know what you make of this. Their view of the matter was that if Biden stops trying to defend the son, but just talks about their relationship as a father and a son and how much he loves to support him through hard times dealing with addiction, that's the posture that he should take. And as long as he emphasizes that his support of his son was only through the addiction as opposed to getting into the specifics of what he's been accused of, then that will insulate Joe Biden. And it's like, are you still under the belief that most people are mad at Hunter Biden because he did drugs? No. I mean, there's people like Marjorie Taylor Greene who will use the salacious photos of him from the computer, the video stills of him engaged in all kinds of acts as a way to try to gin up outrage. But most people aren't even talking about the women and drugs of it all. They're really just talking about the corruption of it all. And it really, to me, reflected how out of they're recognizing that there is enough media attention that they have to address it, but they're still way behind the ball about people's concerns.
This is the bias and the double standard at play, because I'm sorry, this was this was a Republican, this was somebody the media didn't like, it would be the media would be saying that this is a disinformation narrative being circulated by Joe Biden. They would concede that the narrative that he has no knowledge of or involvement in his son's business dealings is just obviously factually contradicted by what we know now, by what multiple witnesses have said about the calls, the dinner, etc. You can't it's just what Biden's surrogates are saying is not correct. Even if there's no greater criminal involvement, that's just the statements were made that the media would call that misinformation in any other context.
It is. The one other point I would note here is that I do think it's really interesting that the heroes in this are the IRS agents who are the whistleblowers.
Yes.
Who've said things weren't handled in the normal course of business. This was a sweetheart deal. This situation was rigged. I think it's a good thing to have highly qualified tax agents able to investigate multimillionaires as they cheat on their taxes. Statistically, the reality is, at a time 10 years ago when we had more IRS staff that was able to dedicate the time and resources to the complicated work of tracking down rich people's taxes, which they're very good at hiding, you had a higher return, more rich people charged as compared to the number of poor people that the IRS went after. And you got more tax returns for the American government. And now it's very interesting to see Republicans on the side of these IRS agents when there has been a whole year of discourse saying we need to defund the IRS and these guys are bad guys. So I completely appreciate the concern about whether or not you're going to beef up the IRS and they're going to continue to prosecute the little guy. But I do think that there needs to be a more sophisticated analysis here that says, do we hire more people to the IRS and actually preclude them in their job description from going after people under a certain income threshold, or what? But it seems obvious from this Hunter Biden case that we absolutely do need more people and more resources dedicated to hunting down extremely affluent tax cheats.
I mean, people cheating on their taxes, absolutely, but we do worry about the little guy being gone after.
Yeah, I would love a ban that says don't even consider auditing people under a certain threshold. But I suspect that the very people who are anti-IRS would not actually back that kind of a proposal. But without the IRS, we wouldn't have these whistleblowers. Without people.
I guess we can pull Republican conservatives. What's more important, nailing Hunter Biden or defunding the IRS? Let's see what they say.
Yeah, because the rich people's interests are on both sides of that.
Yeah. More Rising right after this.